today we have Sandra Ingerman, and we are talking about this book, The Book of Ceremony. What a lovely book. This is going to definitely go into my shamanism section as a reference book for virtually any kind of ceremony that I'd like to perform. I'm so excited to have this book. Thank you for putting this out.
Yeah, it was such a passion for me to put out this book because I've been teaching how to perform ceremonies for years, and I started getting all these testimonials of what started happening in people's lives from performing ceremonies. And when they would have the courage to step forward and bring a ceremony into their community or family, I started collecting hundreds of these amazing
Mm.
stories. And so I said, I must write this book.
Yeah, and so you've been doing this for a while, performing ceremonies, either physical ceremonies that you see a person or you're out in nature, and then you're also been doing these online ceremonies. So tell me a little bit about how long you've been doing ceremonies for and the online ceremonies that you've been doing since I find that whole, I haven't sadly been able to participate in one, but it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been performing ceremony for 35 years. And when I got into shamanism, first I learned about the power of shamanic journeying and meeting up with helping compassionate spirits. And that was so great, and I loved it. But there's a part of me that loves being out in nature and relating to nature and being with the elements and talking to the creative spirits of the universe. And so I was searching because I heard that ceremony was a huge part of shamanism. Again, I was only 29 years old when I got into shamanism back in
Mm.
1980. So it was new. So I was searching out about ceremony a bit. And I found a woman who actually wanted to see me as a client who had written a book on ceremonies. And I said, let's do a trade. You teach me how to perform ceremonies, and I'll do a session for you. And she said, Sandra, I can't teach you how to perform a ceremony. You set your intention and you go out there and you just do it. And so what happened was she gave me freedom because I felt that, if you miss one step of a ceremony, your life is destroyed forever.
Right.
You
Yes.
know? And so this freedom to
Mm.
be able to, what happens in ceremony is we step out of our rational mind and we drop into our deepest space of spirit that opens up a line of connection between
Mm.
us and the creative forces of the universe or our helping compassionate spirits. And we open up this line and we work with them in partnership with the magic of the vibration of our intention and how the spirits work with us to weave that into form, to manifest into our lives. And so I started bringing, after I got experience doing ceremonies and got the power of it, because there's a lot of power in ceremonies, and you do manifest something, even if it's not what you were originally thinking about. So once I felt confident, really, it's shamanism is a lifelong learning, but once I felt confident to bring it into groups, I started leading ceremonies in all my workshops, especially big fire ceremonies where
Mm.
we make these talismans, power objects in nature, and release our greatest obstacles and fears and traumas into the fire to be transformed, or to bring our greatest wishes and to give them to the fire and
Mm.
the fire to act as a giant prayer smoke that brings
Mm.
our wishes into form. And so I've been doing that for over 30 years, bringing this to
Mm.
groups. And then I started teaching online, and I was going, ceremony is it is the core of my work and my
Right.
passion. And
Ah.
what an amazing thought to be able to bring together a global community of thousands, hundreds, sometimes 10, sometimes a few thousand people to perform a ceremony in the unseen realms together because from a shamanic point of view, it doesn't matter. We're outside of time and space when we do this work. What would we be contributing to the collective as we join together? And so I started leading online ceremonies in all my workshops, my online courses too.
Wow. Okay. So the online workshops I find a fascinating idea because, like you said, there's two things. The space doesn't matter. So when I was reading through your book, there is this idea of creating a shared online kind of a space because, as you said, it's all kind of in the imaginative realms anyway. So you're actually traveling to a space of which you're all co-creating. And so that's what you're doing. It sounds like when you're in an online group with thousands of people and I've known when I'm actually in physical circle in a shamanic circle with people, and when we're going on journeys on behalf of people, we'll literally see similar things. I'm like, did you see that light, or did you see this like crow? And you're like, yeah, what was that? And like literally, 15 people will be in a room together, and they'll see similar types of things that happen in this space, which seems just so extraordinary. Do you have the same kind of experience when you're in these online virtual spaces? I assume that you would. And if so, can you share some of those stories?
Oh, absolutely. We've had some really big experiences, and I'll share one that was really wild that happened to me personally. We were doing some online work, and I'm sharing one of my secrets on your show that one of my greatest power places on the planet is Mount Shasta.
I love Shasta.
And I used to live on and off at Mount Shasta when I lived in the Bay Area in the 70s. And before I got into shamanism, I had an experience with the Lemurian spirits on Shasta. I was
Yes.
hiking by myself and I heard the bells from the Lemurians.
Mm.
And I went to town and they said, "Oh, you contacted the Lemurians." And so here I am, fast forward from 1970s to 2018 or 2017, and I'm doing an online ceremony around the Lemurians and bringing Lemurian energy in. And my cell phone rings in the middle of the class. I leave it on vibrate in case there's a tech problem. I check it afterwards, and it's a group from Mount Shasta asking me if I'd be willing to come to this event. I haven't heard from anybody in Mount Shasta since the 1970s. I mean, how
I
did
thought that was the Palladians or Lemurians, or are they different groups in
that?
Shasta?
Yeah, I mean it's all similar. It's energy,
Um,
and one of the things about ceremony is I've realized this year that shamans are gardeners of energy. That's what they do. They
mm,
garden, they plant seeds of energy, they garden, they tend energy, they transform
mm,
energy. They don't work with form. And so when you're working with
mm,
energy, you can only imagine all the synchronicities that end up happening and all the different ways that you can
yeah.
work through ceremony if you just see that you're working with transforming and molding energy into new forms, new positive, healthy forms to help all of us on the planet today.
So you had said that you said a couple different things. I want to go back to your. I'm just starting to do more online work and then group work, and I I'm trying to surrender so that when I'm doing these workshops, like I have a structure. And in your book, you actually have some steps that you go through. Designing a successful ceremony, you have on page 66 of your book. So you talk about keeping it short, preparing, setting a clear intention, creating an altar, greeting participants, being confident in your opening words, creating an opening invocation. Some of them include releasing burdening thoughts, giving clear instructions, inviting people to pray, inspiring, sharing messages, celebrating, and then there's usually closing. So there's a lot of structure. Just like when I'm teaching a yoga, if I've taught a yoga class, there's a structure in which you, in theory, should create. And so it seemed like you set a clear intention beforehand, and what your client had said is like, I can't teach you how to do ceremony. You have to create it yourself. So how much of it is prep work for you, and how much of it is just inspired in the moment with the energies that are there? Is there a structure that you form, or is it kind of a free flow, or some combination thereof?
I think it's a combination. I think for me, and especially as you're stepping on to doing online work, I had some big lessons to learn about that because there's some big lessons about online work. There's similarities to working with people in physical space, but a little bit more exaggerated online.
Mm,
Um, when you perform a ceremony, whether there's a group in physical reality or whether you're online, everybody's bringing their day, their life, whatever's going on for them into that collective field.
hmm
And in shamanic cultures, so much preparation work was done to step away from your humanness. You don't bring your humanness into a ceremony. You bring your divine self into a ceremony. And so when you bring your humanness into a ceremony, because in the modern day world, we don't take the time to prepare. I mean, those of us who are really deep in our shamanic practice, I would never perform a ceremony without taking a lot of time to step away from my ordinary thoughts, things I'm still looping around my childhood. I don't want to bring that into sacred
Right.
space. That affects the space. And that affects everybody in the circle who's joining in. So the key to ceremonial work from a shamanic point of view is creating a pristine collective where everybody makes a commitment to leave their humanness aside and just bring their divine spirit into the ceremony. Of course, there's crying and there's emotion as we're releasing and as we're talking to spirit. But there's something different about dragging all of our emotional garbage and bringing it into the collective that we're working with. And so for me, that's the greatest preparation that I try to work with people online and in physical space. Because if you bring your divine self into a ceremony, then you can be spirit led throughout the entire ceremony. You can make changes to your ceremony because you're spirit led. You're embodied. Your spirits are embodying you during the ceremony, and so you're not working from a mental space. You're working from a place of spirit.
Interesting. I'm a mediator, and one of the things that they do in the very beginning is they emphasize how important it is to create a safe space where someone feels completely safe in being in that area. So, from what what I'm interpreting you saying, and I'm not sure because I haven't been to your online workshops yet, or your physical workshops, is that the first part is just really creating a sense of everyone leaving their humanness behind. So all that prep work has to be done. Is that you doing that before the class, or you doing that before and during the class so that everyone is kind of in a level set in their spirit place?
Yeah, well, I do a lot of that before any class. I mean, I start journeying. If I'm teaching a workshop, a physical workshop a year from now, I start journeying to the land and doing ceremonial work a year before to let
Wow.
this, yeah, I do a lot of
Wow.
tending, a lot of energetic tending. And so it's really important to have everybody participate in that prep work. So I
Mm.
own prep work before, but then as a group, we do lots of singing and dancing. Shamans would chant and dance for 3 hours before they perform their.
Wow.
And we don't do that in today's world, and then, yes, we have to create safety. And that's why I wrote in my book, when you do your invocations with people from different religions, don't use words that would have people say, no, I can't participate in this. Make it safe for everybody. Welcome each person, shake their hand. If it's appropriate, give them a hug, welcome them into the circle. And use invocations like instead of talking about power animals, talk about love and light, calling in the forces of love and light. So
Mm.
everybody feels safe and welcome. And if
Mm.
you can do that preparation work of stepping away, doing some singing or drumming, dancing, meditating, yoga, have used yoga as a preparation. If you can do that and you can make everybody feel safe as the leader, because I talk about this in the Book of Ceremony, because part of the Book of Ceremony is trying to encourage people go out there and lead ceremonies in your communities. This is important work to be done, but make everybody feel safe. If you
Mm.
that, the ceremony's done. It's done. It all.
Mm. Because spirit is doing a ceremony anyways. So as long as you're creating a safe space where everyone can leave their humanness behind, bring their spirit there, then most of the work will just be done. Is that what you mean?
You step into a flow where
Mm.
everything is just so natural and everything is so organic, because what happens in the modern day world is people are nervous about doing ceremonies. So they imitate sometimes ceremonies from other cultures or other teachers without feeling the confidence. And then you don't bring the meaning in because it didn't
Mm.
wasn't spirit led for you, or
Mm.
will read instructions during a ceremony.
Mm. Mm.
So where's the organic flow where it's just happening? And we've all been at events where something magical took place. A flow just happened without trying. And so that's part of the surrendering part and
Mm.
the trusting part.
I did this presentation in January. It was about, or December, or when was it? I don't remember, or November, about reinvention. And I walked in and I had a script all prepared. I had PowerPoints all prepared. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to show the PowerPoints because I don't want to be hemmed in on a certain framework. But I want this as like like my safety blanket. So if I like completely go, blank, I can just read off of these slides, which is what most people do. So I thought, well, I'm just going to kind of go in and I said, I'm not the doer. Spirit is going to be doing this workshop. I've done all this preparation. This is how every single interview goes. Like, I have this whole sheet that I've prepared for before talking to you. I've read the book, I've done all the preparation, and then I go in going, I have no idea what's going to happen when I talk to Sandra. We'll see. So I did this, and it's very interesting because I'm like, I'm not the doer. I'm being led by spirit to be here. I have a structure. I don't really know exactly what we'll do of this structure. No one even knows what my structure is, so only I will know if I'm missing something. And the first words that tumbled out of my mouth, I was trying to like both read the script and not and allow spirit to flow, and it was just like and I thought, forget it, just forget about it. And I just talked the whole time, and and then I was listening, and people were just asking these questions that were just unbelievable, like very vulnerable questions that I would not expect in a group like that. So it was this kind of combination of just surrendering and not knowing, but then also having the structure. So, and I assume in a formal ceremony, this is like a workshop, which is different, but it also had an intention and direction and some structure that I was hoping to deliver at the end. So for a formal ceremony, in how much do you follow the structure? So, there's the, invocation, which you want to do. There's the intention setting that you do beforehand. And it
Hmm.
sounds like a year in advance, you're actually working the land. And as what I think I understood, you said you're working with everyone. And when you say everyone, it's not like the person at the retreat center. Like, you're talking about the animals, the plants, the
Oh,
rocks.
yeah. No, I'm just letting the spirit of the land and the ancestral spirits of the land know that this incredibly heart-centered group is coming to learn how to live a healthy life, a balanced and harmonious life on this planet Earth and respect all of life. Will you welcome us into your field of energy and
Mm,
support us while we do this deep work together? So that's part of my preparation, because you have the spirits of the land where you live, and you can only imagine, if you're performing a spirit-led ceremony, for all of us performing a ceremony, and you don't invite the beings that live on your actual
right.
land, the rocks and the compassionate ancestors who are still there protecting the land, and the animal spirits and the bodies of water. So it's just courtesy, because these beings they're living sentient beings. And so to just do a ceremony on your land and not actually greet all the beings that you're working with and that you live with, in the city, the park, a park, or wherever you go, it's just courtesy.
That's very respectful. So, like, a year before, I'm a process wonk, so I'm just fascinated by all of this. So, like, every day for that whole year, are you checking in, or like a year before and every month, or like, how respectful does one get?
Well, I do it on a regular basis to really create that strong energy field of connection between my group
Mm,
self and the place where we're going. Again, everything is energy, and so we want to cultivate in ceremony. We have to cultivate enough energy to get to produce our desired results. There's a certain
mm,
amount of
wow.
energy. Think about where the planet is right now, and
Mm-hmm.
the destructive energy that has entered into the collective. And just imagine the energy that the spiritual community needs to cultivate to transform that destructive energy that we're experiencing.
Mm,
It takes a lot of cultivating of energy in ceremonies. And that's what we all need to be doing right now, because there is a destructive energy that has entered into our collective. And we can join together and lead spirit led ceremonies, either alone or with others, to create enough energy to create that shift that everybody
mm.
hoping is going to happen. And we're all hoping it's going to happen in 2019. We're
Lord
looking
help us.
forward.
So I'm curious. So one of the things that you talk about in the book is setting a clear intention. And so I just want to take a hypothetical, or let's even take 2019. So I'm sure that you went through, the new year just happened, and you thought about I don't know, did you think about the new, the end of the year, and was there an intention or ceremony that you did as part of that new year?
Well, actually, yeah, there was a lot of ceremony that I did because I really wanted to leave some things behind that
Okay.
I've really gotten are life issues for me, and I just can't carry them anymore. So I did ceremony about what I didn't want to carry into 2019. But what I've been writing about ceremonies for 2019 is actually I'm going to contradict what I wrote in the book of ceremony, and what we're talking about right now is that right now our ego, we're not allowing ourselves to be spirit led. So our egos are coming up with these intentions, but we don't understand that our intentions have a magical vibration to them that go up into the universe. Every spiritual tradition in the world understands that everything that happens in our world is from an energetic intention that happened in the spiritual realms that manifest. And we don't understand how to work with vibration in our culture yet. So, from our ego, we're using words with intentions. We don't have a clue what we're calling in. And so I'm telling people that right now, until we understand a little bit more about the language of the spirits and about the language of nature and the language of the earth, is your intention should be on doing your personal work for healing, but not around outcome, around process. Show me my next steps, help me let go so I'm not carrying this in to 2019. Let's perform some ceremonies where we go into the unseen realms and we flood the collective with love and light.
Mm.
Um, but not asking for specific outcomes. And that's one of I write a lot about this in the book of ceremony, because letting go of our egoic understanding of outcomes is very important in performing ceremonies, because the outcomes are again spirit led in the right time and in the right way. So we have to do a little bit of work to let our ego step away a bit as we learn more about the language of shamanism and what intentions we should be putting out of our desired outcomes. But
Mm.
for now, we can do our personal healing work, and it's a way of preparing ourselves to step into bigger, more potent ceremonies.
Okay, so you had said this earlier too, like what you hope to manifest, and I've had shops that I've been to where I'm like, oh my God, that was amazing, and the person's like, yeah, it was okay. I'm always wondering, and then it's kind of like, meh, they're not the real thing, or like there's this kind of energy of like that didn't work for me. This is all bullshit, like that kind of energy that kind of circles around. And so I often wonder, is it going back to a comment that you made in your book? You create your own reality, right? So if you believe that it, oh, this, my letting go of that, I went through a fire ceremony and I burned an effigy with all my negative thoughts of 2018, and it didn't work because 2019 I woke up and I was like still mad. I mean, how can we let go of outcome, and then also like give me a couple examples of where you've seen someone wanting to manifest something that day, that moment, it happens, or it doesn't happen exactly how they're expecting. So people who kind of walk away like, I went to Sandra's thing and nothing happened, there's like.
Well, before I give any kind of examples, I want to go back into the term of shamans being gardeners of energy and looking at how much destructive energy there is on the planet today and how much we have to cultivate. So, all of us in a shamanic culture, there is no community member that would ever even consider walking into a ceremony with a judgmental attitude. That would be such a dishonoring to oneself,
Mm.
to the entire community, and to the spirits. So
Mm.
when you dishonor in a ceremony, you get that result
Ah,
because Shintoism is reciprocal. It's a reciprocal practice. So whatever
interesting.
you send out, you're getting back.
Like
You
attracts like
judge,
energy, similar kind of thing.
you judge that this is not the real thing and that this teacher isn't authentic and isn't the real thing. And that's what is the energy you just put out, and what's your outcome of your ceremony gonna be?
Right.
So, but yes, ceremonies ceremonies do oftentimes bring about effects that we don't expect. I had a friend who did a ceremony to sell her house. And so she did a ceremony and she called in the name of a spirit to work with. And she called spirit, and she ended up manifesting a man in her life with the same name as the spirit who she called. So she ended up manifesting this relationship where she lived with this man for years in her house that she wasn't able to sell.
I once did, I was in a Joe Dispenza workshop, and he said, try to come up with the most fanciful, weird thing, like whatever. And so I was dreaming, I had this, and he had us do pictures, since, as you say in your book, it's really important to have visual images. So I was just thinking of this image. And then the next day I got $1, and then I looked at the picture, and it was 100 pennies. I'm like, well, maybe you need to better pictures. And then the other thing I thought was I want to manifest an owl. Just I've never seen a live owl, and I really would love to see an owl, which is
Yeah.
one of my spirit animals. So, um, I went to a bookstore and I saw these owls in the bookstore. I'm like, oh, that's sweet. That happened, and so I thought, okay, check, that worked. And then 6 months later, I was walking through a park in the middle of the day, and there are these two owls in a tree, and I was just like, I've never seen anything like. I'm in the city of Seattle, and in the middle of the day were these two owls, and I thought, wow. So it's not, it happened 6 months later, but what I really wanted to see, I did see. So sometimes I think you don't really know, or it doesn't manifest like, like the 100 pennies. I was
Right.
expecting boatloads of money, and I got the $1. That's what I was trying to manifest.
That's pretty good. That's
Um,
pretty good.
I wanted to go back to one of the things that you said in the beginning. You talk about the power of ceremony, and you talk about in your book too. There's just this kind of power of numbers. What do you think? Because you have your own collective energy, and then you're working with the energies of the spirit of the land and the spirit of the animals and everyone. So there's just this huge collective energy before I walk into one of your events. Um, and then what happens when you get like 1,000 people online? Like what? I don't know if you can feel, what does it feel like when you're in this collective online space, and does it feel similar to just being in an offline space?
Yeah, it's tricky. You have to do a lot of work, as the ceremonial leader to really bring people into the circle and having them open their hearts to each other and trying to imagine holding hands together. And so the downfall of online is there's something that cannot be replaced by being in a physical shamanic workshop and drumming and rattling
Hmm.
together and hugging each other and telling stories and laughing and eating together, that can't be replaced by online work. And so the online work, it's been a way for people who are isolated because not everybody feels like they have a way to step into a community. And so it's been a way for people around the world to find community. And a lot of my students who have done online ceremonies go, I actually want to find a physical workshop where I can
Mm.
real fire ceremony, and then I refer them to the teachers that I trained. Um, so it's both. It brings people together in a way where they feel isolated, where they feel like they're contributing. There's something
Mm.
to contribute. And for some people, it encourages them to actually start to work in a community and either find a community or create their own community to work in. And so I think in the end, as long as we encourage people to share this work with others and to bring people in, it could be a really deep and meaningful experience as we join together online. And then we also do our own personal physical ceremonies, or we invite two friends or a family member. There are ways to start slow.
Yeah, yeah, I love that idea. So in the case of, like, let's say that you're going to Shasta to do a presentation, like you were just called to do, um, and you work with that land on an online space, are you, and because you don't even know necessarily in a year in advance who the participants are going to be, do you just call for spirit to, like, how do you set an intention for something that's going to happen online, and how do you set the space for something that's happening online?
Well, the very first thing is remembering that everything in ceremony is around working with the helping spirits. And I've actually changed my whole way of teaching shamanic journeying because we have separated ourselves from the spirits. In shamanic cultures, nobody's separate from the spirits. We actually carry the spirits. And so that's a very important part. And if you're carrying spirit, it doesn't matter if you're online or in a physical space. We're still going to have some powerful results. But as human beings, there's a deep desire to hold hands and
Mm.
physically. But we've done remote. I've done a few ceremonies now. I do this work called Healing with Spiritual Light and Transfiguration. And we've rented a hotel room in Colorado. I live in New Mexico, where a friend of mine and also my webmaster runs a camera that can look at the changes in an energy field of substances and people before and
Mm.
after spiritual work. So we've done these remote ceremonies where 1,000 people from around the world are focusing on the Hyatt Hotel Room 317, where there are people who are ill and um, genetically modified foods and toxic foods. And we've taken pictures before and after the ceremony, and they're on my website. They're extraordinary to see the changes in some of these genetically modified foods. And this was people working from all over the world on room 317 of this hotel.
Okay, so I know you mentioned this in your book. Do you have something that's actually measuring an AMF? I didn't even know something like this existed, but you're actually measuring the energetic changes
Right.
when prior and after this meditation. So and you talk about, you put like ammonia in some water, and then you were talking about so what were the I know I'll look at the pictures on your website, but what can you tell us verbally, what were the changes that you saw in the people that were in the room that were ill, and the plants and the water?
Well, let's talk about Petridge Farm animal crackers.
Okay.
One would not see Petridge Farm animal crackers being cheddar cheese animal crackers being filled with vibrant energy. And when you look at the energy field before you start, you go, I don't want to put that into my body. But when you look at the pictures of the energy field after people are just experiencing the crackers in their divine light, not trying to change them, not trying to do anything. You're in your divine light and you're seeing everything in the room in its divine light. You see the pictures afterwards, and there's energy coming out. It's like, I want to eat that cracker. I want to take that energy in.
Where you can literally physically see energetic patterns around both the people digesting the crackers and the crackers?
No. We're just taking a before and after picture of the cracker. And then with people, we'll see before breaks in their aura, different places, different organs, and different locations in their body. The GDV camera that we use for taking the pictures is mostly used in clinics around the world for diagnosing physical illnesses, because it can diagnose cancer before any medical test can. We just happen to be using the camera for substances, but it's a valid camera that so many people are using for research today. It's unbelievable. And so with people, we can see these breaks in their heart center and in different organs, and then how their auric field just gets really smooth instead of choppy and broken after the work. So and I had a student once who had breast cancer, and she was in her third round of cancer. And we were at a workshop, and it was another country, and she didn't speak English really well. And I showed the pictures of people before and after. And she said, "Can that happen to me?" And I said, "Yes, this ceremony can create the same change in you." And that was probably 20 years ago. And she never did a treatment for her cancer coming back, and she's still doing great, riding her bike through town. I mean, it's quite extraordinary, but it planted a seed in her. This happened to this person. This means it can happen to me. So it gives that feeling, that understanding that change is possible, because in our human ego, we limit what's possible. And when we see these miracles happen, it opens up a realm of possibility within us of that this is possible for me too. And that's for all of us to get right now, because we all have issues about feeling worthy. And a lot of us are struggling to heal right now and wondering if it can happen to us like it happens for other people. And when we see that these things can happen for other people, then it opens ourselves up to the possibility that we can heal too.
So this gal who came to you said, "Hey, could that happen to me? I have cancer," and she was cured. Is it because a whole bunch of people were praying for her, or just the possibility that it could change? She could change her state. Just that thought changed her.
Part of the mystery. It's part of the mystery is, what made that work
Yeah.
so well. And we don't know, but that's what ceremony is about. It's
Yeah.
mysterious and we
Wow.
don't understand, but it does create change and transformation. And so we open up when we do ceremonial work, we kind of open up a roadway through the spirit world. And we know walks and roads. Some roads are really long, and some roads take us immediately to where we need to go. So when we set an intention in a ceremony for a particular outcome, we open up a pathway, and it just might mean the pathway is longer to get there, but
Mm,
you keep your focus. You don't lose your focus. Focus
mm.
is so key to every ceremony. You stay on the path. You stay
Yeah.
on the path till you get there. And your path may take some winding trails, but you stay on the path until you get there.
So when you're talking about a clear intention, it's like being very clear, like I want to, be cured of cancer. It may take a year, it may take 5 years, like whatever period of time. I mean, I don't really know. That may be a ridiculous thing to say about cancer. But like if you say that I have a hip problem and I want this to be resolved in whatever time period, but keeping clear intention and focus on that one thing and the possibility of that resolving itself.
Well, there's so many different intentions because, like for myself, I'll ask, what's the lesson that I'm getting, from
Mm.
this? And then I can perform a ceremony to work with the lesson instead of just asking for a cure. Because in our modern day culture, we're looking for ceremonies, shamanic work to do the same thing that medication does for us.
Ah.
And so it's not always just saying, let me do this one ceremony and I'm cured of this illness.
Mm.
Again, a pathway is opened up, and you're in an initiation process of sculpting away your ego and sculpting away the that are creating this illness. And so through ceremony, you keep sculpting and sculpting until you've died. You have to die to be cured of any illness. You have to die on an ego level to be cured. Even if you live, you have to die.
Mm-hmm.
So, in initiation ceremony, you allow yourself to be sculpted and for that part of you to die so that new life, new health, new vitality grows within you and can be born.
Mm.
And so it's a process that we all go
Mm.
through. And
So I guess what I'm not clear about is intention then. So when you talk about intention, so before you actually have a workshop, you go and try to set an intention. What does that look like? So you go to your spirit guides and say, what should the intention be of this ceremony? Even if it's an initiation, like a birthing or a naming ceremony or a closure ceremony, do you have another intention in addition to that?
no, I think we're confusing topics
Okay.
here.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Help
The
help
work,
help me clear my fuzzy mind.
yeah, the work I do before a workshop is to create sacred space. Create sacred space so that people aren't stepping into a sterile room. They're actually stepping into a spirit filled, loving space. We've
Okay.
already started filling our space with ourselves and love before we've come. Once we're at a workshop, I know exactly what the intention is of the ceremonies we're going to perform. And so we get clear on the intention is to release an old hurt, trauma, obstacle that prevents me from being able to heal or manifest my desired outcomes. So it is important to set an intention right before you do a ceremony, as you're starting your ceremony, what are you asking for? Are you asking for spiritual help to uncover what's happening with you? Are you asking for spiritual help to help you find a better, meaningful job that brings more joy into your life? What is it that you're getting into a spirit space to speak with the creative forces of the universe to manifest something? What is it that you're asking to manifest in your life? And again, it could be energies that you're asking to manifest.
Mm,
Of bring in positive energies to help me step into the flow of life.
mm,
But
mm.
you wanna say what it is that you want before you do your ceremony,
Right.
because that helps you design the ceremony.
Right, right, right. I get it. Thank you so much. We've been talking to Sandra Ingerman about her book, The Book of Ceremony, Shamanic Wisdom for Invoking the Sacred in Everyday Life. Thank you so much. Tell me about your website if people want to join real quick. What's your website URL?
SandraIngerman.com.
Okay, and here's the spelling of it. We'll have it on the website too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, CJ. It's always a delight to talk to you, and I love the work that you do. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and would love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.